Here's a scenario I want you to sit with for a second. You wake up, you grab your phone, and the first notification you see is a breaking news alert. It says something like, NATO forces mobilize along eastern border, or China moves on Taiwan. And I want to be honest with you about what most people do next. They don't call their parents, they don't check on their friends, they open their brokerage app. Because financial anxiety is just a different kind of survival instinct, and it gets triggered by the exact same stimulus that used to make our ancestors run from predators. Except now the predator is a 2% portfolio drawdown at 6 in the morning. And here's the thing, the people who open that brokerage app and sell everything, they genuinely believe they're being smart. They think they're protecting themselves. What they're actually doing is locking in losses, handing the IRS a gift, and positioning themselves to miss the exact recovery that's about to happen. I know that sounds wrong. I know it feels wrong. That's the whole point of this video. My name is Bruce, and I spend way too much time thinking about how geopolitical crises intersect with personal finance. If you're someone who feels that pit in your stomach dread every time a war headline crosses your feed and you have absolutely no idea whether to do something or nothing with your money, make sure you hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if it helps you out. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who need. Before we talk about a single investment, I need to address the machine that's working against you. Because if you don't understand this part, nothing else I say today will stick. The financial media has a business model, and that business model is not built on you making good decisions. It's built on you watching, and you watch longest when you're scared. A 2% market drop described as moderate volatility consistent with historical conflict patterns does not get clicks. The same drop described as global markets in freefall gets millions. Look, I'm not saying there's some shadowy boardroom where people cackle about your fear. I'm saying there's a very mundane advertising spreadsheet that proves your panic is worth more than your calm. Every second you spend watching coverage, anxious and glued to a screen, is a second they're monetizing. And here's what makes it insidious. The more scared they make you, the more likely you are to trade. And trading means fees. And the brokerage running ads in those commercial breaks is right there, ready to process your panic for a small percentage. The entire ecosystem profits from you doing the wrong thing at the wrong moment. You need to know that before you hear a single word of crisis coverage ever again. Here's what most people don't realize. Markets don't die in wars. They dip, they panic for a few weeks, and then, with almost no historical exception across 110 years of data, they climb. The Dow Jones gained 50% during World War II, 60% during the Korean War, 27% during Vietnam. The S&P 500 has delivered positive one-year returns after 73% of all armed conflicts since 1945. Not some of them, nearly 3/4 of them. Now you might be thinking, okay Bruce, but this time is different. There are nukes now, the stakes are higher. And look, I hear that, but here's the uncomfortable truth. Every single person who sold at the bottom of every single one of those conflicts thought it was different that time too. The Korean War looked like the beginning of World War III. Vietnam was a grinding, decade-long disaster. The Cuban Missile Crisis had people genuinely believing nuclear war was 48 hours away, and the market recovered from every single one. Why? Because war, and this is going to sound cold, but it's just economics, war is the most aggressive government stimulus program in human history. When a country goes to war, it spends without limit. Weapons, fuel, food, logistics, medical technology, communications infrastructure, all of that flows directly into the earnings of publicly traded companies. The government becomes the largest customer in the world overnight, and it pays whatever the invoice says. That money has to go somewhere, and it goes into earnings. Here's what I really want you to understand, because this is where it gets really interesting. Panic selling doesn't feel like panic. It feels like clarity. You're watching the markets drop, the news is bad, the situation is genuinely uncertain, and selling feels like the one rational, decisive action available to you in a moment where everything feels out of control. You hit the button and you feel this wave of relief. You did something. You're not just sitting there watching a number go down. And then the market recovers. Maybe it gets worse first. Maybe it takes 3 weeks, but it recovers. And you're sitting on the sidelines holding cash that's losing purchasing power by the day, trying to find the exact right moment to get back in. The answer your brain gives you is always not yet, once things settle, once there's more clarity. But here's the cruel math of that decision. JP Morgan tracked this across 20 years of S&P 500 data. A $10,000 investment held from 2005 through 2024 grew to $71,000 if you just left it alone. Missed the 10 best trading days in that entire stretch, 10 days out of roughly 5,000, and you end with $32,000. Missed 30 days, you're essentially at break even for 2 decades. And this is the part that should make you genuinely angry. 7 of the 10 best trading days in any given period happen within 2 weeks of the 10 worst. The crash and the recovery are practically the same event. The financial media covers the crash breathlessly. They barely cover the recovery at all, because good news doesn't generate the same ad revenue. So here's the actual playbook. And the order matters. Each step creates the foundation for the next one. You cannot deploy capital intelligently if you're one emergency away from having to liquidate it. Step 1. The cash floor. 6 months of living expenses. Not 12, not 18, 6, in a high-yield savings account or a government money market fund. And, I know this sounds slightly dramatic, $2,000 to $5,000 in physical cash in your actual home. Here's why that second part isn't paranoid. When Russia was cut from the SWIFT payment network in February 2022, Russian citizens woke up to non-functional ATMs. Not because their money was gone, because the digital infrastructure that moves it was switched off. Cyber attacks on payment systems are documented first-strike tools in modern conflict. A few weeks of physical cash isn't prepping. It's a basic hedge against a 3-day disruption. Build the floor, then stop. Every dollar beyond that sitting in savings is quietly evaporating because, and this is the most important word in wartime finance, inflation. Wartime inflation averages 4.5% versus 3% in peacetime. Cash beyond your emergency buffer is a slow bleed. Step 2. Gold. 10 to 15% of your investable assets. But not for the reason most people think. The instinct is buy gold because the world is ending and gold survives the apocalypse. That instinct is right about the asset and catastrophically wrong about the timing. The people who bought gold at the 1980 peak during the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan waited 26 years to break even in inflation-adjusted terms. 26 years. Gold is best bought before it's on the front page. If you're reading a headline about gold hitting all-time highs, part of the move is already behind you. The smarter reason to hold gold right now is structural. Central banks globally have been buying over 1,000 tons annually since 2022, the highest levels on record. That's not panic buying. That's institutional repositioning by sovereign wealth managers diversifying away from dollar exposure. When that's the driver, the move has more runway. IAU or SGOL are both clean ETFs holding physical gold at near zero cost. Keep a small slice, maybe 5% of your gold allocation, in actual physical coins, not for the apocalypse, for the scenario where digital payment infrastructure is disrupted for 2 weeks and something tangible has immediate local value. Step 3. Defense. 10 to 15%. This is the trade that wartime history hands investors every single time, and most people don't take it because it feels uncomfortable, which I understand. Profiting from weapons manufacturing doesn't fit neatly into most people's self-image. But look at the data. Raytheon gained 37% in the week after 9/11. A $10,000 investment split across the top 5 defense contractors on September 18, 2001 was worth $97,000 by 2021. Lockheed Martin has returned over 1,200% since the War on Terror began. In 2022, while the S&P lost 18%, defense stocks outperformed it by 28 percentage points. And here's what makes this more than just a war trade. Germany, famously pacifist for decades, approved a $100 billion special defense fund essentially overnight in 2022. Poland is now spending over 4% of GDP on defense, double the NATO target. The entire EU has shattered defense spending records every year since. The defense sector is sitting on backlogs that would take years to clear, even if every active conflict ended tomorrow. This is a decade-long structural shift that conflict just accelerated. XAR is the cleanest ETF, equal-weighted, so you're not making an all-in bet on 2 companies. It's returned over 20% annually for the past decade. Step 4. Energy, 10 to 15%. The script here never changes. Conflict restricts supply, panic drives premiums, energy stocks print cash. When Russia invaded Ukraine, Brent crude crossed $130 a barrel. Any escalation touching the Strait of Hormuz puts pressure on 13 million barrels of daily flow. In 2022, while the S&P lost 18%, XLE, the energy sector ETF, gained 64%. That's an 82-point spread in a single year, the largest divergence between energy and the broad market in the ETF's history. And do you know what the financial media was covering that year? The tech sell-off, the NASDAQ in freefall. They were completely right about that story. They just forgot to mention the thing quietly going up 64% in the same year. Step 5. Consumer staples, 10 to 15%. People do not stop buying Tide during a war. They cancel vacations, they skip restaurants, they do not stop buying Tylenol, Bounty paper towels, or Coca-Cola, because human beings require caffeine and clean surfaces, irrespective of geopolitical context. When the S&P was down 17% through August 2022, XLP, which holds Procter & Gamble, Costco, Coca-Cola, and Walmart, lost only 4%. 13 percentage points of cushion. Nobody is excited about consumer staples at a dinner party. This ETF will absolutely never be the thing your coworker brags about. It will also keep you warm when everything else is on fire. Step 6. Inflation protection, 5 to 10%, and a warning. During World War II, standard U.S. Treasury bonds lost 67% of their real value, the classic safe haven, the asset every financial anchor tells you to buy during uncertainty. One of the worst trades of the entire war. Because governments borrow massively during a war, issue enormous new debt, and inflate their obligations away over time. Nominal bonds get destroyed. What works instead? TIPS, Treasury Inflation-Protected Securities, which automatically adjust their principal when CPI rises. The ETF version is TIP. Or Series I savings bonds through treasurydirect.gov. Zero expense ratio, fully inflation-adjusted, $10,000 per person per year. The one-year lockup is annoying until you realize it's the government preventing you from panic selling your own inflation hedge. Avoid TLT. Long-duration nominal treasuries are exactly what gets crushed when inflation runs hot and the government is issuing debt to fund a war. And the one thing you absolutely do not touch, your index funds. VTI, VOO, SPY, untouchable. CFA Institute data across every major war found that large-cap stocks returned 11.4% annually during a war, higher than the 10% peacetime average, with lower volatility. Keep your automatic contributions running. If you have a Roth IRA, a market downturn is the single best time to contribute. You're buying tax-free growth at a discount. So here's how this plays out in practice. That morning arrives. Your phone is exploding. The chyrons are red. Some analyst with perfect hair is explaining why this time is categorically different from every other markets have recovered. The person without a plan opens their brokerage app, sells everything, feels briefly smart, and spends the next 12 months watching the recovery from the sidelines, while the financial channel that scared them to sell runs ads for the brokerage that processed the trade. The person with a plan checks the structure they already built: the cash floor, the gold, the defense, the energy, the staples, the inflation protection, the untouched index funds. They put the phone down, they make coffee. One of those people builds wealth through the crisis. The other funds the system that was designed to prevent them from doing so. The time to become the second person is right now, not when missiles are flying, not when headlines are screaming. Now, because the structure you build in calm is the only thing that functions when everything is chaotic. If this reframed anything for you today, hit like and subscribe. It's free. It takes 2 seconds, and unlike the financial media, I don't profit when you're scared. See you in the next one.